Shlomo, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Igal. So happy to be here, and shalom out there to all the fellow tribesmen. Igal, I love what you do. I'm
Thank
so
you.
happy to be on your show. This is such a great need. What you're doing, you're fulfilling such a need, and it's so great to be here.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to have you on, not because you are big in the community where you are, but you've written a book, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But first, kind of give us the where you come from, why you're in Washington D.C., and why you're part of, or you founded the Lev Experience, if I'm not mistaken, and
Absolutely.
tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I'm from Brooklyn, New York originally. I'm a born and bred yeshiva boy.
All right.
And after high school, I went to Israel for several years and kind of felt like my purpose was to inspire, to teach, to share Judaism in a more in a warm and welcoming way, in a way that would be engaging and in a way that would be relevant to anyone and to everyone. And my journey took me to different places. My wife is from Colorado, so I ended up in Colorado a little bit, and I was able to, stretch my legs a little bit over there and teach and get involved in the community. We moved back to Israel afterwards, and I got involved over there in Aish HaTorah. That eventually led me over here to the DC area where I ran Aish HaTorah for a while. And then I think both my wife and I, we felt that we wanted just to have our own brand, something that was fresh and original and was us and can let us be as creative as we wanted. We wanted to not have any sort of association. So since then, we do lots of classes and trips and we try to create content like the podcast and the book that you mentioned, and really just trying to touch and inspire Jews and give them a way to an entry point to Judaism in a way that they won't find anywhere else.
So tell me about that anywhere else. I think that there's a lot of people who say that we're trying to bring Jews back to Judaism and inspire them. What does the Lev Experience do that's different than other organizations?
Sure. So I think that all organizations are great and everyone has their own style. So, I don't know that anything that we do is better. But I think that what makes us, I think, unique, at least, what we try to offer, number one I think that there's a strong sense that people will be 100% accepted for who they are, where they've been, where they're going and where they want to go, and that there is spirituality that is there and that's available for anyone. It doesn't necessarily need to look a certain way. We pull together a lot of different ideas. Obviously, everything is strongly founded in Torah. We have a strong mystical language that we use. The ideas, the ideologies that we share are like that, but we'll also bring in a lot of more cultural ideas. We tiptoe around other spiritual ideas that people might be familiar with, from other circles. So we try to bring all of that in, but ultimately, the bedrock of it all is that spirituality is for you today. You, whoever you are, wherever you're coming from, wherever you're going. This is not about asking you to change or be someone else. This is about making your life better. The life that you're already living is fertile ground for incredible spirituality, and it's right there.
Love it. Now I want to get to your book. And I always believe, if you've listened to the podcast, I always believe that God puts guests on my show at the right moment for me to learn from and to share
I'm sure
with,
that's true.
share with people who are listening. And the 4 Elements of an Empowered Life, a guidebook to discovering your inner world and unique purpose. For those of you who don't know, this week I'm actually shifting what I do for a living, and kind of just switching the genre. And so I'm excited to hear about it. Tell me about what made you write it, and let's kind of dive into those 4 elements of how to live an empowered life, especially as a Jewish man.
Well, I would love to, but I think you just got us all curious. So maybe just finish up on that. We want to hear where you go and what's your plan, and then we'll get to me.
Sure. So for 7 years, a lot of people know me as the pawn shop coach. I own a chain of pawn shop. I sold them, and then I started consulting pawn shops for a while. And this week, actually, I'm announcing my retirement from Pawn and doing just focused leadership development, which has been
Wow.
my passion since I was 15 years old. And so after my father passed away almost 2 years ago, um, after we buried him, I just said, like, why am I playing so small?
Right.
Like, why am I doing something that I don't fully enjoy? I enjoyed the consulting, but I wasn't waking up like, oh, let's go. And
Right.
so after nights of praying and thinking and talking with my wife and my team, we said, done. And so I make
Right.
the official announcement tomorrow morning, which won't be tomorrow morning for you guys on this podcast.
Right.
But I'm nervous, I'm excited, and to see where this takes me. So
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, first of all, best of luck to you. That's
thank you.
you're going to be great at it. You're going to be great, and just from hearing your stuff, you're an inspiring, an amazing guy, and whoever your clients are going to be are fortunate and lucky to have you. And I think, like, we both know well that when we're trying to find our purpose in life, there is no one mission, there's no one purpose, there's no one picture on the wall that we say, what, that's what I'm going to be, and that's going to carry me through my whole life. Like, we evolve as people, and we could have one purpose at one point in our life, and that's our whole world, and that takes us wherever we're supposed to be. And then we look at that life of ours and we say, what, that's not me anymore. I need something different, and something happens in our life that makes us look elsewhere, and then that becomes our mission. So it's a beautiful process. Anyway, so best of luck to you.
Thank you. Let me ask you a question before you move on to that. I feel like a lot of men, especially, they get that feeling and they hold on to it where they don't make a change. They don't talk about it. So that's when stress, anxiety, they might, drink more than normal. They might do some things out of character because they're not sharing the fact that, like, okay, I'm providing for my family, but I'm just not happy anymore. Let's hit on that, and then we'll talk about those four elements if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely. There is certainly, like, I don't know how long it took you to, when after you made this realization, maybe it took a day, maybe, you had this realization, and your father, first of all, his neshama, his soul should ascend to the highest heights, and maybe you had this epiphany and you were poised to jump into this new thing. But we go through dry spells in our life, and they can last a long time, they can last a short time, and that's with anything. It's not just with career. That could be with our marriages, with our relationships, with our spouses, our kids, just our feeling of, like, we're sad, we're happy. So we can go through dry spells and they could last a long time. I think that the key is to not remain stagnant, but also to realize that you need to give yourself that grace. And maybe for a year or so, you'll just toy with things, and you'll give yourself that license to quote unquote, to embrace the suck, and to say, okay, I'm not really feeling that fulfilled right now, so I'm just going to use this time to play around with things. Not to say that that's going to give me fulfillment, but it's going to give me time to learn about myself. And then eventually, we hope that eventually the clouds will clear, and we will, over the course of time, maybe it'll take 2 years or 3 years, but we will get some other sense of missionhood, and a sense of what gives us fulfillment. And that might not necessarily be in another job. It might be the point where I'll make that shift in my life and say, what, my job was my mission, it was my main purpose at one point, but now I need a shift, and now I need to make my job, which was once the primary thing in my life, I need to move it down on the list, and maybe now I need to focus on something else. But it does take time, and I think what happens is that people just, when the clouds are not clearing and they're not seeing things with clarity, people will throw in the towel and not give themselves enough time to really say, okay, this is my time to explore.
I love the fact that you just said, instead of taking the job and saying, like, enough, and like say you quit or you change things, you just reprioritize. It might be your health, spirituality, your marriage, and so that you get a little bit more joy in life or see some more light, and then it can clarify, was that where I was missing something? Right? Was the stress of my job the one that was bogging me down, or was it the fact that my marriage wasn't so connected? Now that I connected more to my wife, my spouse, I feel much better, and I can do a better job in my business.
Yeah,
Is that
and
what I'm
I
hearing?
mean, one of the early points that I try to make in the book is that I think now the language, what we've created, and a lot of the TED Talk, self development, quick, short, motivational, inspirational, created this idea that like your mission is one thing. Find your mission. 3 steps to finding your mission. Like
Yeah.
your mission is everything. Your mission is everything in your life. Your mission is today, and your mission is tomorrow, and your mission is the people that you like and the people that you don't like. It's the things that you love and the things that suck. It's all part of it. It's
Mm.
not that one thing that's going to turn you on. There are going to be, the more sexy parts of our mission, but it's not going to be everything. And therefore, it's when one thing is not working, it might be, like you said, a good time to just shift things around and say, you know what, am I looking at every part of my life and making the most, and asking yourself about each part of your life, like, is this working? Is this as best as it can be today?
I love that. Incredible. So when it comes to that empowered life that you talk about, in the book, I kind of sift through it. I bought it actually. It's arriving tomorrow, unfortunately.
Oh,
But you
all
do
right,
talk
enjoy.
about, thank you. You do talk about, kind of like fire and water and those types of things with it. So explain to us how that is connected to living that empowered life.
Sure. Okay. So the overall the premise of the book is that instead of looking outside of ourselves, we really have to understand ourselves, and we have to understand that there's so much, we're complex. We're complex beings. The Torah compares a human being to having a ladder with its feet on the ground and its head in the heaven. That's the famous moment where Jacob was leaving Yaakov. He's leaving Israel, and he has this prophecy. He has this dream, and he dreams of a ladder. And the ladder has its feet on the ground and it has its top in the heavens. And according to the mystics and the Kabbalists, they say that that's us. That's our inner world. That's our soul. And we've got a lot of layers in there. And our default mode, it's like when you play a video game, you kind of get the free version, and they tell you like you can get level 1 and level 2 for free, but then once you pass level 1, level 2, then you can unlock level 3. You might have to pay for level 4. And that's the same thing with us. We have this ladder of consciousness, this ladder of spirituality that we're trying to climb.
Mm.
And until we learn about our inner worlds, we can never, until we fully know what our inner wiring is, what our operating system is, we can never fully feel fulfilled in our mission. So the idea behind the 4 elements is that the same way that everything, all of matter, all of physical matter is broken up into, it can be earth or solid, water or liquid, wind or air, which is like gas, and then fire, which is just pure energy or plasma, right? Whatever it is. And you see that it goes from being heavy in mass to getting lighter and lighter and lighter. The same thing is true with our own inner ladder as well. And our default state of consciousness is earth, in the sense that earth, we are concerned about, staying alive and the basic things, survival. Am I going to have food to eat? And am I going to remain healthy? And along with that comes all of these fears and anxieties. But that's just the physical part of ourselves. And because of that, the physical part of yourself, it's beautiful, but it's also always dying. And therefore, there's this inner sadness that comes along with that as well. So over the course of life, we move up to the next rung of the ladder, which is like water, and that's our emotional realm. And that is where we discover pleasure and connection and relationships, and all of those beautiful things. That's where we move from, okay, it's not about paying the bills and surviving on bread and water, but it's about steak and sushi, but even deeper than that, but about real beautiful connections with other people, really connecting deeply, and growing in that way. And then once we master that, and I say once, but I don't necessarily mean chronologically, because all of this is happening, at once. But sometimes we're just more connected to one level of consciousness more than the other. So then we move on to wind and to air, and that's kind of the realm of our intellect, of our ideas. bigger than our relationships. We want to discover, we want meaning and purpose. We want to understand like who we are and why we're here, and what is spirituality and what is religion. And we want to ask why to whatever we see. Why does God do this? And why do things function the way they do? And then on the highest level, the highest plane, and when I say highest, I don't really mean highest, because this is all touching on something that's even higher, which is our soul. But the level of fire is transcendence. The same way fire rises to the top and destroys everything in its path, fire is when we discover how great and how big we can actually be. So fire is really where we discover our self and our identity. We become leaders, we become passionate, we aspire for greatness. And hopefully that itself will lead to an awakening of an even higher consciousness, an even more expanded consciousness, and a discovery of our soul. And that kind of opens up the Pandora's box to many more levels that are on top of that.
What does it mean, finding our inner self? A lot of people are listening to this saying, I've been trying to find my inner self for a while. I might go to shul or synagogue. I might, go take karate. I might do something. Like, what does it mean to find your inner self? And when I hear that, I hear like peace, right? Like a peace within yourself, so that you can transcend from level to level in an area not of comfort, but with a easier path, I guess. So what is that? Like, is that taking more classes? Is that meditating? Is it connecting more to God? How do you find that?
I think that the first thing is like, how do you view yourself? How attached are you to all of those other things? To find yourself the way I understand it, and how to do it is, we can talk about how to do it, but first let's just define what it is. I think that when a person can identify every single day, the primary way that we identify ourselves is bigger than all of the tasks, bigger than anything that we're attached to. And to view our life from that high place, to almost as if we're looking down at ourselves and all of the different things that we do. My relationships are not me. My bad mood is not me. These are the things that I might be doing right now, in this physical body, in this embodied state in this world. But ultimately, what am I? I am something that is so much bigger than all of this. And because of that, I can take a step out of all of this stuff, take a step out and look at it almost from this high level place and speak to God, have this conversation with God and be able to fully, comfortably say without judging oneself at all, to say, what, Hashem, I am, like we say in the morning, Haneshama shenasata bi tahorahi. I am a soul. I am pure. There's nothing that taints my soul. Not any of my bad habits, not any of my addictions, not any of my bad character traits. Right? None of that defines me. None of that is really part of me. That's the clothing that I wear. And I'm always trying to improve the clothing. That's why I'm put in this embodied state. But that's not essentially who I am. And I think that once a person can operate from that place, looking at their life from there, then we're in a much better place to make good decisions, to improve, and to control our emotions, and to experience life on our terms rather than just, being a victim to all of the things that happen.
I want to go back to something that you said. I always like kind of like reiterating things that really hit me in the heart. And you said that our soul is always clean, and the things that we do, our addictions, the whatever it is that happen that we're not happy with, is the clothing that we wear. So many times I feel like, for myself, that if I do something bad, right? If something happens, I think we all make mistakes. I embed it into who I am. And so moving forward for the day, the month, the week, whatever it is, it gets harder and harder. And so there are times where I will, something will happen in my life, and then like I'll look at my tefillin, and it's hard for me to even put them on because I feel like, I'm not worthy. How can I show up in front of God? How can I show up and put on such holy things if I've made such grave mistakes? But what I'm hearing you say is your soul is clean. It's just the clothing that you're wearing. So at that moment, change the clothing, make it better, and still wrap the feeling. I'm sure you're going to say that, right? But it's the essence of like, I feel bad, so I take action, as opposed to that's not who I am, and how do I improve that bad action that I'm taking?
I love that you used tefillin here as an example, because just even as you were saying this, this reminded me of something that happened to me. And again, I wasn't an 18-year-old kid. I was probably, maybe close to 30 already. And I don't know why this hit me one day out of the blue. Again, I've been putting on tefillin since my bar mitzvah. All your audience, everyone knows what
Yeah.
tefillin is. Is that
Yep.
okay?
Yep.
So, I've always been putting it on, and, good days and bad days, and days that we concentrate and days that I forget, whether I even put it on. But I don't know. I was in a dark place. I don't even remember what quote unquote bad thing I did. And it was hard. It was hard to get up in the morning. It was hard to pray. And for the first time in my life, putting on the tefillin meant something totally different to me, because I'm like, look at this. Here I am, feeling dark, feeling, dirty, whatever it was. And here I can take God's name, and with the Shema Yisrael, which is in the tefillin, it's in those boxes, and bind it and wrap it and put it on me and wrap myself in my talit and literally feel God hugging me. There's no mitzvah that we do that's closer to like our body, right? Than I'm putting it on my mind. I'm putting it on my muscle. I'm putting it next to my heart. I'm wrapping myself in the talit. And at that point, I was just like, Hashem, I need this so badly right now, because this is literally you hugging me as tight as you can. I think I put on tefillin so tight that day, I think cut off my blood circulation. I'm telling you, but I needed it. I needed that hug and that reminder that yes, at any point in time, we're able to push this reset button, right? Because again, our inner world, we're an elevator. And yes, I was on the bottom floor, and now just like that, I'm going to push the button and I'm going to rise to one of those upper floors.
So it's not feeling bad and not doing it. It's even if you're in that dark place, to wrap it or do something good so you can connect more, to be able to change that clothing, as you mentioned.
Exactly. You're changing the channel. You're changing the channel. And that is, I think that's the secret. The secret, because we all mess up again and again and again. And the secret, my wife always says in our home, she always tells our kids when they get into a funk, like, you have the power to pivot. It's the power of the pivot. And that's like one of our household things that we tell that our kids know, okay, I'm pivoting now. Because there is no one that can just that just goes straight and doesn't fall. And the key to greatness is how much you can pivot and say, okay, that was that, and on a dime, I can change.
Is that what living an empowered life is? What I'm hearing is, when you can make those pivots in the dark moments, when you can make those pivots when things are going good to become even better, I feel like there's more empowerment there. It's on me. It's on my connection. It's on my actions, my words, to be able to be empowered and to continue on my mission, on my path as is.
I think so. And maybe if I can maybe take that a step farther, I think the empowered life is even when you're in that dark place, you understand that this is really part of that beautiful picture. Like, that's what makes me. That's what makes my life my life. There's something beautiful even in the fall. Like, here we are. I don't know when you're going to post the podcast, right? But we're here, and we're in the month of Elul, right? We're coming up to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and literally we are in a time where we have the ability to transform. Right? According to the Talmud says we can transform our iniquities, the things we've done wrong. We can transform it into zechuyot, into merit, into holiness. Now, how would that even be possible? How would you be able to transform something? I mean, you can say we can wipe ourselves clean. People like the image of white, like we're clean now. But this is so much bigger, because God is everywhere. God is in everything. You know, the great story of repentance in the Talmud was a fellow who recognized at the moment that he was together with a prostitute, and that's when he recognized the fact that, you know what, I'm so much bigger than this. It was being in that dark moment that catapulted him to his place of greatness. And the reason that God created falling and teshuvah is because there are holy sparks even in those dark places. And when I find myself there, that just means, well, you know what? I was put in this cave, I was put in this dark place because there's God here, and I was supposed to find God here. And sometimes I find God by doing the right thing, and sometimes I find God by falling and figuring out how to get out of there, because there's a certain spark that's over there also. And I think that when we can look at all of our life like that, I believe that that's really, you know, true empowerment.
I was listening to a video of a rabbi, and he was saying how sometimes, like you said, you're put in that dark place to connect even more, to remind you of what you could have, what you've lost, what you've given up, and to connect even more. And it brings me to the point where there's a book that I love. It's called Here I Am, and it talks about constant amazement, like to be just consistently in gratitude and amazed. You know, one thing that people don't do is we're sitting here talking on Zoom. You're in Washington, D.C., I'm in San Diego, and we forget to just be like, wow, like this is incredible. And I think that a lot of times for myself, as you talk about this, I sometimes forget to wake up and say, wow, you know, I'm alive. Wow, I can walk. Wow, I can see. Wow, I can put on tefillin, right? I can, you know, do what I want to do. And I think for me, because I always talk about me in these shows, is that sometimes we're surrounded by people who have forgotten as well. And so we get numb together as a group. And one of the most amazing things that I know is like when I go to synagogue and pray, I'm around others who are doing it, and it kind of like levels me up because other people are doing it. Right. But if you're listening to this, what I'm getting from this, and it's like really hitting me hard, is that there are some days that I do feel darkness. It's a tough spot to be in. Right. But if I'm surrounded by others who sit in the darkness, we'll just have darkness altogether. But if I can connect with somebody like yourself, or pick up the phone and say, hey, I need help, let's have a conversation, let's connect somehow, then there's a little bit of light, and that light grows to take away the darkness little by little.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, just from listening to your podcast again, and when we first connected, you know, I went back to the early episodes, and I mean, you really like, you jumped in pretty strong to speak about, you know, the heaviest topics.
Yeah.
And you know, I was hooked. I was hooked just to listening to you and being inspired by you and being inspired by your experiences. And you know, you got there, and I probably got, you know, to where I am, and you know, for whatever my struggles were. But I mean, those are the things that made us. Those are the things
Yeah.
that built us into who we are. And yeah, I mean, listen, you're a shining light because of not despite all that, but because of all that. And you know, one of the things that my rabbi always says is it's an old Hasidic teaching that says there's nothing more whole than a broken heart. And you know, I just remember, like, you know, even growing up, you know, the perfect kids, the kids who were perfect in school, the kids who lived the perfect life. Yeah, I mean, it looked like everything went great for them, but there was also something very shallow over there. You know, there was never, I knew, even you know, when I was growing up, and you know, I struggled in my early years. I struggled just, you know, my parents were getting divorced, and you know, things were shifting in my life. But because of that, I craved and I yearned for a certain depth in my relationships. And that was something that all of the, you know, the kids that just seemed to have it easy, like, you know, they didn't have that. They couldn't connect deeply in that way. And that built me into who I am. So, you know, it's that broken heart that opens you, that when your heart is broken, it opens up a certain amount of depth to receive, and depth to be able to give. And there is holiness in that, but it can only happen through that brokenness.
I love that. You know, it reminds me a lot of times when I became the president of the synagogue, I was privy to information, right? As people come and talk to me, and and things like that. And the one thing that I never understood was, why is it that we don't, as men, we don't raise our hands and say, I need help, I'm not okay? Because when we don't do that, we can't live an empowered life, right? We can't come to the place where we can mend the brokenness and become better and share. And I think at times when I look at my community, there's this sense of, and I think about like my parents when I was growing up, they taught me to make everything look like everything was okay and to never share what was going on. You know, I've had people who came onto the podcast, and you just shared about your parents going through divorce, and I would do the podcast, and and after the podcast, I said, you know, you didn't share, you don't really share anything. And they said, no, I don't like to share it because it's who I am and what I'm going through, and I don't want to disconnect from people. But to me, that's how you connect the most. And when I became the president, I told the rabbi, I said, Rabbi, I love my rabbi, he's a great guy. And I said, Rabbi, enough with the Torah says. I'm not discrediting it, and you should add it. But people want to see and hear, what do you go through? They're like, my rabbi has 10 kids. How in God's name are you able? I have 3 and it drives us crazy. How
Right.
do you raise 10 children?
Yeah.
How do you sleep at night? How do you not go crazy? How are you still married? Tell us about those things and infuse it with the wisdom of the Torah as well. But I think there's and I don't know about you, but growing up, the people I was surrounded by, there wasn't that connection, like true connection. You know, I'd go to shul, for example, and people would say, Igal, when are you getting married? When are you getting married? And I would say, why don't you just ask me how I'm doing first?
Right.
If you want my tzedakah, here you go, but ask me how I'm doing. And I think that that's what we need, is we got to sit, and even with our friends of many years, we got to sit and be like, how are you? So what's going on? Tell me how you're really doing. We paint a beautiful picture on social media, making reels and selfies, but we don't tend to actually connect by sharing what's actually happening because of that judgment that we might get in return.
Yeah, and this is true, especially with guys. You see it even, even with teens. It really, like, it starts early. You see everything from, it's their social media. It's just the way, it's kind of, the bro language and the way they talk to each other and the way they walk down the halls. I give a class in a high school, and it's even just watching them walk down the halls and, high-fiving and chest bumping, and it starts, and it only grows from there. And I think that it's only, like you said to your rabbi, I think it's only when someone takes that step forward and says, you know what, I'm ready to be vulnerable, I'm ready to open up, then, and that sort of diffuses it a little bit. And you can actually see, when a true leader who's able to sit with a group of people who, and again, like, yeah, I can see, again, I only see you now through Zoom, but you're a good looking guy, you're a cool guy. And I think that when we meet people that give forth that image, the initial thing would be, so I need to talk a certain way and act a certain way. But then when someone is ready to, when the tone of voice and the language is one of, I'm so self-confident that I don't have to be anything that I'm not, and I can speak to you like a real person. You're a human being with a soul, and I can see right through, I'm not talking to you, Yigal. I'm just saying, like, when a person, you can see, right through that all of the, all the plastic, and you can see right through, because I listen, don't bluff me. I know you're struggling. I don't know what it is, but you're a human being just like me. And once you have that confidence that you could speak with that realness and that humility and be real together, it's amazing what things happen. And I've seen that also, just with the guys that we work with as well. I've had a lot of guys groups, and I know that ultimately no one's going to open up if it's not going to be me first. And therefore I'll just put out, and you know what the truth is, I have so much to learn from all these guys anyhow, so I'll just put it out there. I have 6 kids, and I struggle. So listen, if none of you guys are going to talk about what's going, so I'll just tell you, like, this is, tell me, give me some advice. And once guys start opening up, you see that, there's so much going on in there, and they're struggling in the sense that they don't have the people to share it with, and the people that really can put their arm on their shoulder and say, like, it's okay to be a human being.
Yeah. And that's, for me, when you talk about like living an empowered life, it's when you can be so self-confident that you can share what needs to be shared without judgment, knowing that you and I are humans. We all make mistakes. We have our brokenness about us, our dark places within us. And I think that's how people can show up, especially men, into their relationships, into their business, into their community by saying, I mess up all the time. It happens. So let's connect, because you and I both do. And there's nothing you can say that's going to hurt or judge me, because I know my faults and I know what I'm working on. And that, to me, is where, that's how I look at living that empowered life.
I love that. I love that. That's awesome.
Amazing. Love this. Shlomo, this has been incredible.
Thank you.
I think that, like I said, go out there. If you're listening to this, buy Shlomo's book, The 4 Elements of an Empowered Life, a guidebook to discovering your inner world and unique purpose. I can't wait to read it. I get it tomorrow. And thank you so much for being on, and let's keep connecting.
Yes, I appreciate it, Zigal. I hope you enjoy the book. And to you and to your audience, again, the book, it starts very heavy and it gets a little bit more fun as it goes on. So be patient with it. Send me any questions that you have. We can go as deep as you'd like. God willing, I hope to put out a second one this coming year. And to you, to all of your audience, best of luck and blessings for the new year. And Yigal, this definitely can't be one and out. We have to figure out where we can go with this. Hopefully, this is just the beginning.
I'm sure after I read the book, I'm going to send you some emails like, wait a second, let's talk about this. So how can people get a hold of you? Your website is it rabbishlomo.com?
Yeah, so rabbishlomo.com, and I'm on all the social medias, which is a great place to connect on, Facebook and Instagram. And I spend, probably more time than I should, but I do love connecting there. And it is a beautiful place, and besides for all of the, people flaunting I like finding the people that are really doing creative stuff. And there, there's some really cool stuff going on. So I'd love to connect with anyone there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show. Tribesmen, thank you so much for listening. Once again, join us in our Facebook community, Tribesmen. We're there to ask questions, talk, enjoy, and have fun. And stay tuned for the next episode. Rabbi Shlomo, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And always, before I forget, I say this to every guest: may you have strength and courage, my friend.
Amen. Same to you.